that I didn't see till last night, and it's caused quite a fracas. Jesse Ventura, Pet Detective, a must-read, and it's up at davidicke.com. And so here's my message to both of them. David, you know that they interviewed you for the first season of Conspiracy Theory on Secret Societies. It was the first time there was ever a national TV show that was anti-Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, Illuminati, and you were interviewed and presented as an expert with gravitas. You were treated with respect. That piece is public. I'm sure you've seen it. So let me just bring that in as evidence, number one. Number two, you are both good people that I know, and even if I disagree with some of what both of you believe, it doesn't mean that we're enemies. It doesn't mean that we can't all have our views. Many of David Icke's views, he's insightful, he's charismatic, he's very intelligent. A lot of what he's talked about has come true. He talks about some really wild stuff, but truth is stranger than fiction. I'm not saying I'm sold on some of it, but a lot of what he covers is mirrored in religions of the world and history. He just has a different interpretation of it, and it's a lot less wacky than what some other religions push. So my question is, why do people get so upset about what David Icke covers? Okay? Now, on the subject of Ventura, people are asking, well, Alex, what are you talking about? And I've been embroiled in this. I've been mentioned in this several times, and so I'm going to cover it here briefly, and then go to our Jim Rogers interview, at least parts of it ahead of our guest joining us. The interview I did last night that we're premiering here on the radio today, and also we'll stream it at prisonplanet.tv. There aren't many people in the world that are prominent, who will cover hard subjects and who will delve into things with an open mind. There aren't many people who have large followings that are well-known and who can reach a giant audience anytime they want. Jesse Ventura can do it. I can do it. David Icke can do it. Who else is there at that level? And I was responsible partially for waking Ventura up 6 years ago and giving him information and material. His son Tyrell had already primed the pump. But I was instrumental in bringing Ventura completely over to a full awakening to the fact that this is a big lie. Doesn't mean Ventura has all the answers, or I do, or Icke does. And I know that he is a good guy who's waking up and learning a lot and has a really good chance to even wake up more and reach tens of millions of people. And so we can't have David Icke and Jesse Ventura fighting with each other because of a comedy of errors. And that's my message, and then I'm just going to finish up briefly here, to Jesse Ventura and to David Icke. Because this is a comedy of errors. I have been on probably 15 shoots with Jesse Ventura in the last 2 seasons and this season of Conspiracy Theory. When they're out in the field and we're at some government facility or something, it's live, it's 100% real, it's happening. But when you sit down and do an interview, sometimes the camera guys and lighting guys will take 2 hours to get ready. I've been there many times with Ventura's like, come on, let's get this done. And then he'll just kind of rant and rave about the New World Order and police state and stuff and issues. I mean, he's a real person. He's really passionate behind the scenes about these issues. He'll talk to a waiter. He'll talk to troops at the airport. He will sit there and talk at people. And so what happened is Ventura rode the train for a day to get there to meet in Cleveland, Ohio with David Icke, where he was speaking. And in reality TV, they do not want the people that are about to meet beforehand because they want it to be real. And so Ventura gets down there, and he's in one room, and right next to it's Icke. They're keeping them apart. He hears Ventura for an hour talking about issues. Icke is feeling like, Icke says, well, I'd like to go in and meet him. Ike's a nice guy. He's like, I'd like to go meet him. You know, and they're like, no, you can't meet with him now because it's just some, mid-level or low-level, person who's keeping the schedule. And that's what he says in the article. Is like, no, sorry, not right now. Didn't tell him why. So he sits there for over an hour, hearing Ventura right in the next room, basically saying, hurry it up, and this New World Order, and, ranting about issues. And then Ventura comes in, And they sit down and they start doing the interview. And Ventura's like, give me bullet points, boil it down. And Ike's like, come to my 9-hour thing. And Ventura's like, I can't. I got to get back on my, train. And Ike's, well, then why? And then Ventura, and it's all described here, is like, come on, tell me, when did you see a lizard person? And Ike wants to get all into history and Sumerian texts and Garden of Eden and all this stuff, and that it's interdimensional or spiritual or whatever. And there's basically like a blow up is basically what he says, and he just got up and left. Now, I get a call last night from the Ventura camp. I'll just leave it at that. And they were upset, and they weren't even asking me to call Ike for them or what they should do. They were just telling me, have you heard about this? And I said, no, I haven't heard about it. And so I pulled up the article and read it. And I said, well, what I think you ought to do is contact David Icke, because there's not many people at this level trying to wake folks up. We don't need people fighting with each other. I said, I called him turd in the punch bowl 12 years ago. It was wrong. I apologized for it. We need to maybe do a Skype interview since he's gone back to England where, we could say, we decided to, try one more time with Ike and then let Ike somehow boil it down for him. Because, Ike will end up being in the TV show like 3-4 minutes. So that's why they were like, give it to us quick here. Crystallize it. And Ike's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Now, speaking to David Icke, reading his article, he's like, first, the arrogant one, Ventura, sits there for an hour making me wait, blabbering. Well, no, that's because Ventura is so real. He's in there talking about the New World Order. Then, Braverman wanted me to sign the release form first because this was obviously a setup. And I could see how it looked like a setup. No, they always want people to sign a release form in case something happens in the interview. And Ventura is going to ask hard questions. But that's just standard for TV. And David Icke was a national TV host. He knows that. But I can understand how this all looks. And then he also, the one thing Ike does that isn't fair, and I understand David was upset, so I'm not attacking him. I've said things that I think are a little bit, off color. He says, oh, they keep mentioning, on TV how he was a Navy SEAL. Well, sorry, don't Navy SEALs kill people? I don't think that's good. I'm not into killing people. Well, by the way, Jesse's anti-war and anti-offensive war, so he's not into killing people either. Basically, I know Ventura. Sometimes he gets in kind of a grumpy mood. I'm sure that's what was going on. Ike had been super ill, so ill he almost didn't do the interview with us. And he still did the interview the day before, did the interview with them, and both guys aren't going to be pushed around, and they just clashed. Two tough guys, because, Ike back in his day was a tough guy and champion soccer player, and, I've read about him and stuff. He's not a wimp. And so the whole deal is you get two tough guys together, they start arguing. Ike thinks it's a setup, it blows up, but Ike, and I mentioned here, he says, well, Alex said it was going to be a nice, friendly piece, and I'm sure Alex meant well and is correct. He says, I have no doubt that Alex believed what he said to be true. But the problem was, something else happened. David, you were on their show 2 years ago, and it was totally positive. What's happened here, David, is that Ventura is nervous covering these subjects, but he's covered all the hardcore things that can be proven. People want to hear this covered. And so this season, some of their episodes are subjects that Ventura isn't, entirely comfortable with. So he's going to put you on the hot seat. And I always see David shine on the hot seat on international television and things. So David was sick. Ventura was in a grumpy mood. You guys need to get back on the phone, be friends, and not have this piece come out with the blow up and all this just because it makes interesting TV. It needs to, you guys need to be friends and agree to disagree and not let this happen so that all of your supporters on both sides start fighting with each other over this. Let's not divide and conquer here. I understand David's issue. We all need to be friends. That's what I have to say. Okay, we are back live. I'm going to start in this segment and for about 15 minutes in the next hour air part of our Jim Rogers interview we did yesterday. Of course, the billionaire, investor, hedge fund guru, the guy that is credited with really helping George Soros dominate the markets early on, Guinness Book of World Record holder. We're going to be going to part of that interview I did last night. The whole thing's posted at prisonplanet.tv or InfoWarsNews.com. And by the way, there's just not the nightly news. There's all my films and so much more. Almost 9 years of material at prisonplanet.tv. We got a 15-day free trial running until the end of the month, and then we're going to end it. 15-day free trial right now at prisonplanet.tv. And I'm running a special through Christmas that I've never offered before, and it will end after Christmas or around Christmas. It's a Christmas special. All 18 of my films that are on DVD for $99.95, a $260 discount. And the small profit we make does fund this operation. So Infowars.com, you can do all your Christmas or holiday shopping at one fell swoop. Buy a couple of these and you really could. 18 gifts. 18 gifts, and it comes with the Citizen Rulebook and more. Available at Infowars.com. Okay, part of this is my intro to Jim Rogers. Then we'll go to break as he's introduced, come back and just continue airing it into the next hour. Then I'll get into all this other news we've mentioned. Let's go ahead and go to the Jim Rogers interview from last night on the fact that it's a foregone conclusion, total global meltdown. Accurately predicted. I've got some of the news articles here and what he sees coming up in the future. His latest best-selling book is A Gift to My Children, A Father's Lessons for Life and Investing. Of course, you can also go to his website, Jim Rogers, that's ROGERS.com. And he's also a Guinness Book of World Record holder on multiple fronts. We'll get him to talk some about that. Now, he joins us here while he's on his exercise bike in the beautiful, I guess, semi-tropical environs of Singapore. And so we turn now to Jim Rogers joining us here at InfoWars Nightly News. Jim, thank you for joining us.
I am delighted. And yes, I did Singapore. We're on the equator. In Singapore, it's either always hot or always hot and rainy.
Well, I tell you, I've probably watched you 300 times on national television, Fox, CNBC, you name it, but I don't think I've ever seen you on a exercise bike. So we're honored that you're doing this with us.
Well, I'm delighted. I'm multitasking. I try to get two things done at once. So if I fall off the bike, you'll be the first to know.
Okay, Jim. Wow. Now, listen, there's a lot of stuff written in the press. I want to make sure this is accurate. A few days ago, a bunch of reports came out that you said global collapse, a done deal. What's your view on the world economy right now and where it's going?
Well, Alex, every 4 to 6 years in America, we've had a slowdown or a recession. Ever since the Republic, the beginning of the Republic. So we're overdue for one, the end of 2011, 2012, 2013. So it always happens. It's going to happen again, despite what politicians and central bankers tell you. The next time around, it's going to be very bad. It's just as, 2002, we had a slowdown. 2008, it was much worse. 2012, 2013 is going to be worse still because we shot all our bullets. I mean, the U.S. cannot quadruple its debt again. We cannot print more money again, staggering amounts of money again. So it's going to be a mess, a huge mess. There's nothing we can do about it.
Now, let's talk about, because I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but I've printed up a bunch of news articles here. I remember you 3-4 years ago saying what they did wasn't going to work, that you'd see all sorts of currencies going down globally, that commodities... to toot your own horn, but I've printed up a bunch of news articles here. I remember you 3-4 years ago saying what they did wasn't going to work, that you'd see all sorts of currencies going down globally, that commodities was the place to go. And gold's gone from $300 to $1,800. Silver's gone from $5 to $30+. You're saying get into farmland. Toot your own horn, though, just so people can understand why you made the predictions you did. Quite a bit of what you predicted has come true. Break down how you were able to make those predictions, and then what you see coming in the near future, and then even the medium term.
Well, Alex, partly because I know what's happened before in the world. In the early 1990s, Japan had a problem like this. They refused to let people fail. They propped everybody up. You remember the term zombie banks, zombie companies? Well, it's 21 years later. Japan is still suffering because they didn't accept reality. They didn't take the pain. The Japanese stock market is down 80%. That's 80% in the last 21 years.